Yo, what is going on, guys? I wanted to do another conclusive analysis video on this knife. This is the Microtech Sigil. This, in my mind, has always been a very attractive knife to me. I wasn't sure if I would absolutely love it as much as I do, but I ended up getting it a couple of months ago, probably like 6, 7 months ago at this point, and I've loved it ever since. So I guess we'll do some size comparisons first. In my mind, it reminds me a lot of two other Microtechs I absolutely adore, and those are the SOCOM and the Stitch. Now, this is a collaboration with another custom knife maker. Obviously, the Stitch is Borka Blades. But I think it's Monroe Knives, based off of one of his models, or maybe that is the name of the model. I honestly have not had a ton of time to keep up with a lot of custom stuff, so pardon my ignorance. But yeah, very beautiful knife, in my opinion. It's very aggressive in its styling. And I think it has a lot of good stuff going. They are kind of hard to find. Recently, I've seen some listings for up to $700, which I think is kind of crazy, honestly. I think these were about $450 new, maybe 400, but I think they're about worth that. It's not a perfect knife, like I say with just about every knife I do videos on, but it is pretty close. Now, I guess we'll do some more size comparisons to a few knives you guys might be more familiar with. So we'll do a XM18 3.5, the SNG. So bigger than both of those two. It is about the size of a SOCOM. And we'll do two more. So Sebenza, large, classic design, and the Zan. Damn, my lighting sucks. God, I need to work on my shit. But anyway, yeah, so a lot of good stuff going on here, and some things that are not so good. I think I've talked about what I don't like on this knife already in my previous video, but we'll talk about it again for the sake of discussion. So, what do I like? Starting with the blade, we have a 3.8, 3.9 inch blade. I like that. A little bit large for a folder for most people, but in my opinion, just about perfect. It is ground thin, which is fantastic. It maintains a pretty sizable thickness all the way to the tip. You can see very stout, even in comparison to, let's see, is that a good spot right there? Yeah. Even in comparison to the SOCOM, you can see it maintains the stock thickness a little bit further to the tip, which I like to see, especially in this case. I think due to the grind, it doesn't sacrifice edge thickness. So a lot of times you'll see knives get thicker behind the edge at the tip. Not the case with this, which is honestly a pretty big deal for me. It's one of the reasons why I put the Zan above the Sebenza 21, at least the drop point, is because the Zan stays a little bit more consistent behind the edge. So the steel M390, it's fine. I don't think Microtech does a phenomenal job with their M390. It's come up pretty soft in a lot of Rockwell tests, and that's reflected poorly in cardboard cutting, which is, I think, a pretty good metric by which to measure edge retention. Stock thickness, 4mm, or wait, I may have just made that up. Oh, no, it's 4mm, I think. I don't have a milli around to verify that, but it is about a millimeter thinner than the 5mm stock on the SOCOM. So, pretty decent thickness. Deployment with the flipper, very nice, very fast, very easy. I do like the flipper on this, which usually I'm not a fan. It's just extremely easy to deploy the knife. So, that's always good. And then another method of deployment is this groove right here. Now, it doesn't do much for me in terms of like opening it with my thumb, but two-hand deployment that I think we talked about yesterday with this guy and using gloves makes it a little bit easier. But mostly the way I deploy this knife, if not with the flipper, is with my middle finger. So I just kind of, I guess you could say, spidey flick it. I don't know if that's the politically correct term, but yeah. So yeah, good stuff going on with the blade. It actually has some pockets milled in the blade, which I think is a nice feature. It's a nice touch. Lock face, kind of a matte finish, which is interesting. I've not seen that in many other designs other than this. You can see it has a detent ramp, which is to aid in, how would I explain this? So sometimes, can I demonstrate it? Let's see. When you're dealing with a flipper, say you're going to close the knife and you're too close to the flipper. Say your thumb is right here. Now you have to work around that detent and it can send the knife flying. To avoid that, they milled that little kind of ridge in there, right there. So it's just a seamless closing of the knife, which I think is a nice feature as well. That is also the case on the SOCOM, and I think those are the only two knives I've ever owned that have that. I don't think the Sabenza, nope. Yeah, so pretty much just those two. I like that feature personally, but yeah. Anything else with the blade? It has a finger choil or sharpening choil. I would never use this as a finger choil. Too small. I think it's kind of risky. But I mean, if you have small hands, I guess it's a go. The way I view it is kind of just a sharpening choil, which I think is how most people view it. Moving on to the handle, very cool pattern on it, very aggressive. It kind of looks like a spine of just whatever, anything that has a spine. I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it looks cool. Ergonomics, it's kind of, it's not bad. There are some odd spots on the handle, and I really can't pinpoint what is causing that. But in general, I'm going to say the ergonomics are good. The clip does cause some ergonomic issues, which is kind of surprising to me. Just because normally a milled clip like this will not have as many ergonomic issues as a spring clip, for example. So kind of interesting that this has some ergonomic issues. But again, I can't pinpoint exactly where they're coming from. Milled titanium handles on this version. They do have an aluminum version. They have a brass version, I believe, carbon fiber, maybe a G10. So there's a lot of different variety out there with this knife. They are very hard to come by right now. I'm hoping that Microtech does a second run, maybe one day. But I don't think they've made these in quite a while. I think 2017 or 2018 was the last run they did of these. So kind of sad to see a model like this go, but I guess it makes it more limited, if you will. Hardware is what it is. I honestly don't mind that much. I don't take my knives apart really that often. I carried my Zon for about a year, and during that time period I did not take it apart hardly at all, maybe twice. So not a huge deal for me. I know it is for a lot of people. Yeah, overall styling of the handle I think is pretty fucking sweet. Normally I'm not one for super aggressive styling, but this is just something else. Like, I really don't know. I don't know why this knife does what it does to me. But yeah, talking about the lock, this is an area where a lot of people make mistakes, and I'm no expert in manufacturing or anything like that, so I don't want to give off the wrong impression that I know better than Tony Marfione or any of his guys, but there's just something odd about this titanium frame lock. So you can see it has an insert there, but for whatever reason it just feels a little gummy, which I've heard other people also say, and I don't know why that is. It's almost like a little bit of stick, but not enough to actually be stick. Kind of odd. I don't know how else to explain it other than that, but it's not really a bad thing. I don't know. With a knife like this, I am gonna just say I think maybe it is a good thing that it has a steel insert. Just because I know that this knife is already discontinued, and I know if it comes out again that, you know, it's gonna have some design tweaks to it. And especially with Microtech, just they'll keep a knife in production for 23 years. I think this guy's been in production now. So I think it's probably easier to maintain a lock like this with the steel insert. Now, is that the case with everybody else? I would say no. I think Hinderer, Strider, CRK, I prefer their locks without the steel insert, but I'm going to make an exception this one time. I really think, just due to how limited it is, that they're not going to be able to replace the scale. And due to this not having a stop pin, they're not really going to be able to increase the size of the stop pin. Now, okay, so it does have a stop pin. It's just contained within the actual blade itself. So there is a post. Let's see if I can find it. Looks like right around here. So that part is fixed, and what they could do is add a little bit of material to that stop pin, but you can't add too much because it's just sitting in a groove. So obviously if you add too much material to the stop pin, or you increase the size of the stop pin too much, it's not going to fit in that groove. So in this instance, again, I'm going to say steel lock insert is fine. I would like to see a custom without a, not from Microtech. This is completely unrelated to this knife. I would love to handle and kind of mess around with a custom Monroe without a steel insert, or, you know, just a custom in general. But yeah, handle, I'm going to say, is pretty good. I don't know, just something about it speaks to me. But again, that lock is just very, very odd, and the detent feels a little gummy as well, although it doesn't reflect in the actual action of the knife. So something weird is going on with the insert. I don't know what it is, but it has to be something relating to that, because that is where the detent is inset, and it's also the contact point for the actual liner. So yeah, in terms of that, not sure. But yeah, overall, I do like the knife. I don't have a ton more to say about it. It's a great performance knife. Some observations I've had with it are that the lock insert, just because it is steel and because I think the design just allows for a little bit more flex, the liner will travel over to 100% if you use the knife hard enough. Now, that's not the case with the SOCOM, which is why I'm so puzzled by the issues this knife has. Not even that they're issues, they're just quirks, I guess you could say. But this knife doesn't have any of those problems, and it's a liner locking knife, so kind of similar concept to a frame lock. And this also has an insert. So as to what went differently with this knife versus the SOCOM. I'm not sure, but I vastly prefer the SOCOM's lock and the way it feels to the Sigil. Other things, copper over travel stop. That's kind of cool. I think it looks great. I'm really not a big copper micarta, like trendy material kind of guy, but in this instance, again, it's just so tastefully done. It's not like a huge copper scale smelling up your hand, weighing you, not weighing you down, but you know, making the knife weigh 9 ounces, which I've handled some of these brass sigils and a few of the brass LUDTs and SOCOMs, and they're heavy as fuck. So that in and of itself is enough for me to not like brass or copper. But this is just tastefully done. It's a stunning knife. It's kind of hard to believe that Microtech made this in a sense, because it's so different from what they typically do. Like even their other collaborations with custom makers are very Microtech vibe knives. Like this is an auto aluminum handle. This one's 3V, but normally it's M390. You know, button lock, spring clip, just, you know, regular stuff. And then you have the SOCOM, obviously. Like that's not a custom collaboration, but it's a very Microtech knife. And then when you compare it to the LUDT and, you know, not really their OTFs, but it just stands out like a sore thumb. And I think that's really one of the appealing things about it is how different it is. But yeah, it's I don't know. It kind of it's a similar feeling that I get to when I see knives like the Amphibian, like other rare Microtechs. Not that this is rare like those, but it just feels like it's going to be a knife like that from Microtech's lineup, which in my opinion is super cool. It's kind of why I bought into the Stitch, because I had a feeling that that would be sort of like that. Now, obviously, I like the Stitch and the Sigil for other reasons, but that's just an added little bonus, I guess you could say. The knife does run on bearings, which is not my favorite. Honestly, this knife with the hardware it has would have been perfect on Teflon, because Teflon you really don't need to maintain at all. I mean, you do to a certain extent, but for the most part, it's kind of immune to a lot of the issues that ball bearings get. And in a knife, when you can't necessarily open it without spending $70 on a tool, if not more, then I would say that would be beneficial. But what do I know? Backspacer, kind of cool. Just a lot of cool detail work done to this knife. But yeah, that's all I got for now, guys. Super cool knife. I recommend it if you can find one. It's not going to be for everybody in terms of style, but if you like the SOCOM and, you know, maybe you sold the SOCOM because of the rubber texture inserts, or it just wasn't classy enough for you or Gucci enough, this might be the knife for you if you can track one down, because it is very SOCOM-like in terms of cutting and, you know, overall size. But everything else is very, very different. So if you're someone that needs to have all of the new Gucci features, milled clip, you know, cool styling, then this should be a go-to. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've made it to the end, I appreciate you. And I will see you guys in the next video.